Up with Cynthia Dill. I am thrilled to have in my video studio today the Maine radio legend, Randi Kirshbaum. Welcome to the show, Randi.
Thank you, Cynthia.
I'm so glad to have you on, and in large part because you're a professional and I'm, kind of an amateur when it comes to this video stuff. But if we were going to be having background music right now, one of your, say, like favorite Christmas carols, what do you think we'd be playing?
Well, I wouldn't play a Christmas carol because they all have lyrics and singing, and that wouldn't make real good background music. So it would have to be an instrumental. And
Let's see. Vince Guaraldi.
Yeah, that'd be okay. Yeah, that Charlie Brown special is celebrating its 60th anniversary next year. It's 59 years old right now.
You know who else is 59 years old right now?
Who?
Yours truly.
Well, there you go. You'll have a big birthday too.
Not only that, but my birthday is on January 6th. So before Donald Trump, my birthday used to be about the Epiphany, and I would joke, to my kids like, "Oh, the Epiphany is my birthday." Now it's the day that, we almost had a coup, but I'm still looking forward to it.
So long as it doesn't taint your birthday forever.
Exactly. So, Randi, you are a radio personality that has been with me for a long time. I honestly don't listen to a lot of the radio anymore, but I'm so impressed that you, we don't say DJ anymore. What's the title that a radio personality, I guess, on 3 different stations, right? In Vermont, in Boston, and in Seattle. Is that right?
Yeah, no longer in Seattle. That station changed formats. But yeah, people still say DJ, but I guess radio personality is probably more accurate since we're not spinning discs anymore.
And what is your setup at home in terms of technology? Is it basically like a computer and a couple of speakers and a microphone?
Yeah, it's a home studio. I have my computer and I have a microphone and a mixer and some other equipment just to make it sound professional quality. But it's pretty easy to do anything from anywhere these days, as I'm sure you are aware.
And in terms of the microphone, you don't have one of those screen things in front of it and like talk right up close to it, but you sound really good. Why is that?
I've never really liked windscreens. I just sort of work the microphone so that I don't pop my peas and, do whatever you do that a windscreen is supposed to prevent.
Well, I'm hoping to learn how to not pop my peas. Maybe I just did it.
Peas.
So I probably should have told you that I was going to sort of make this show somewhat holiday theme.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not a huge surprise. Are you willing to share with us? Is there a holiday tradition or religion that you identify with?
Yeah, well, I'm Jewish. My husband is Christian. So in my family, we always celebrated both Hanukkah and Christmas. In fact, when my 1 year at Christmas, we were going around the table just talking about what we were grateful for. And my son, who was probably about 5 at the time, said, "I'm grateful for Daddy because without him, we wouldn't get to celebrate Christmas."
That's funny. Well, it's very convenient this year that Hanukkah and Christmas lines up perfectly, right? Yeah. Hanukkah starts, I think, on Christmas Eve, and it goes until the day after New Year's. That's
so they're right there.
Well, I found out my mother, who's 86, and she's in assisted living and is with it probably 85% of the time. And then 15% of the time she's sort of checked out for lunch. I love my mother so much. And she told me and our family for the first time, she's an evangelical Christian, born again Christian, sort of been shoving it down our throats somewhat, for a long, that my Italian grandfather from Trieste, which is now Italy, but was then Austria, was Jewish. So wow. I know I'm so excited to be part of.
You found that out without having to do a genetic test.
Yeah, well, and we'll see, because it could be that my mother's. Right. But I am taking a trip to Trieste with my husband this summer, and we're going to track down my family roots. Well, since you celebrate both traditions, or at least are aware of them, I'm curious about a few things, in terms of gift returns.
Mhm.
What do you have a philosophy about? I mean, like if you say, for instance, you have kids, adult kids, and you
Mhm.
buy them a sweater or something, is there a policy in your house about who's? I mean, I just feel like this returning gift thing has gotten out of control. When I was growing up, we never returned gifts. We never expected any gift to be returned. What's your philosophy about gift returns?
Wow, I don't guess I probably never have, created a gift return manifesto or anything, but I I try to give them gifts that they'll like, but if they don't fit or, if there's a reason to exchange, then I have no problem with that.
And
And
do you return it? Like, do you get in the car and go, or do you give them the receipt?
no, I just let them deal with
Yeah.
it. And my daughter, she's pretty specific about what she wants. Like she goes to one of those websites. So my I have a 29-year-old son and then 26-year-old boy girl twins. And my daughter has one of those websites where you can list what you want, the gifts you want, and then people can go there and choose. So she makes it pretty clear what she wants. We try to get some surprises too, but the boys are a little tougher because we'll say, "What do you want for Christmas?" I don't know. So we try and come up with something creative.
My son, I have, 2 adult kids. My son is, 29, he's gonna be 30 in
Mm,
February, and he always comes up with things, like, right at the last minute, like, he's getting here on Sunday before Christmas, and I'm sure he'll tell me Monday and Tuesday, like, what he's absolutely needs, but,
mm.
cr it's fun, isn't it, to have adult kids at the holidays? I mean,
It is.
it's
It
so
is.
I think it's really a lot of fun. Now, what's your, take on reusing bags? I mean, does it come a point where these bags just have to go, or are you a believer that you just gotta reuse this stuff until it's threadbare?
We reuse things, although I have really mixed feelings about all the holiday accoutrement, like wrapping. It just, it's so wasteful. We try and save it, but I'm not a fanatic about it. It's not like I fold up every little piece of wrapping paper and save it, but we definitely save ribbons. And if it's some big wrapping paper and the bags, I mean, you can get a lot of duty out of those bags year after year. So as we open presents, I just have kind of a pile where I collect. It's like, okay, give it back and we'll use them again.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's kinda what we do too. And, do you put together a list in your how how do you think of yourself in terms of the holiday traditions? Like, are you kind of, anchored in the Jewish tradition from your early years, or have you sort of evolved and just take it all in from all perspectives?
Yeah, I guess I always felt really sad that we couldn't have a Christmas tree when I was young. I was very envious of my non-Jewish friends, and I'd say to my mom, "Can't we have a Hanukkah bush?" And she would say, "A Hanukkah bush is a Christmas tree in disguise." But when I first got out of the house and started living with roommates that year, we had a Christmas tree, and I think it was all this pent up wanting Christmas from all the years. I really, it was such a gaudy, garish tree because I just put everything on it that every Christmas decoration I could. So I enjoy both. This year, actually, though, we're just having a really low key Christmas with one son because my other son who lives in Scranton, my twins live in Portland. My other son lives in Scranton, and he can't come until January. So the week that he's here in January, we are calling New Thanks Christmaka, where we are going to celebrate Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas, Hanukkah, and New Year's Eve, all in the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and in that new word that you have, is there 2
Yes.
Ks in the "aka" part?
You're right. New Thanks Christmaka.
Yeah, so that's the thing I'm, exploring. If I do have this Jewish blood
Mhm.
in me from my, um, Italian grandfather, if I don't know how I'm gonna go with the Chanukah or the Nau, 2 N's. How do you spell it?
In Hebrew, because then there's no question. It's a
Wow.
Hebrew word, so you spell it in Hebrew and it has its spelling.
And what do you do for food? Like, do you have the
Traditional.
latkes and
Yeah, we have latkes. Usually my husband is the cook in the family. He's a better Jewish cook than I am. And even though he's Christian, and we usually have brisket and latkes and some traditional Hanukkah food.
oh, that that sounds nice. And, what do you have come up with a list of things that you aspire to have, like, as gifts, or do you
No, 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 not at all. In fact, We used to do one little gift every night as we lit the candles, and now we just do sort of one big blowout that's like Christmas and Hanukkah together. We do gelt, which is the chocolate coins, and we'll give the kids that as we light the candles, but that's pretty much it.
What
No.
is the symbolism of the gelt?
Well, you are familiar with the dreidel, which
Yes.
is a toy, a Hanukkah toy. It's a little top, and you spin the dreidel. There's a game, and based on how the dreidel lands, you either get coins or you give coins, and the gelt are the coins that you give or get.
And in college, do Jewish kids turn that into a drinking game?
That's a good question. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that.
And the story of Hanukkah, I really appreciate. I mean, the Festival of Lights, there's something lighthearted about it, and the idea of the oil, and it's in my view, as a spiritual person who grew up in the Christian faith, and I find a lot of comfort in the Christmas story of, Mary and Joseph in the manger and the three kings. There's something, I don't know, similar about both of the stories that kind of make it feel like home to me. But I'm interested to explore a little bit more the Jewish tradition. So during the 8 nights, do you like pause and reflect, or is it kind of like the Christmas tradition that has sort of been overtaken with just a lot of partying and lightheartedness?
We do the blessings over the candles when we light the candles, and usually we don't talk about it or reflect so much. Although this year, my daughter has a new boyfriend who's very interested in what happens at Hanukkah. And I was thinking he'll be here for the latkes and lighting the candles. So we will explain the Hanukkah story to him and tell him what it's all about. So that has caused me to this year reflect on whether I can tell that to him or if I need to do a little research.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's and what is his background as far as you know in terms of
He's French Catholic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's gonna be fun. Is this the first Christmas with the new boyfriend?
Yes,
Or
although
first holiday, first Hanukkah, not Christmas. Well,
yeah.
both.
Well, both. And as I told you, we're not celebrating with my family till a little later on. So this is our
Right.
first Christmas that we won't have our daughter with us at all because she's going to be with his family, which should be interesting. I said to her, are you going to go to mass? And she said, what's mass? Which was sort of embarrassing considering her father is Catholic, but he's sort of a lapsed Catholic. So, we don't go to mass, but yeah, she'll have an interesting experience with them. And can come
What area of the country is she gonna be with his family at?
Lewiston.
Oh,
Yeah. So she'll be in Lewiston.
that
Yeah.
not too far then.
No, not too far.
So, so you do still you don't spin discs, but I like to think of it as spinning discs.
Right.
And when this time of year comes around, are
Mhm,
there, in your commercial roles, do you
mhm.
have, songs that, like, just make you cringe every time you hear them and others that you like? Like, what how do you digest the same songs over and over and over?
Well, the stations that I work at are, we play a lot of different music, like a wide variety of sort of eclectic music. We're about music discovery. I don't know if you've listened to either of my stations in Boston or in Burlington, but they're similar to WCLZ in
Mhm.
Portland, and so the music that we play is not the typical Christmas music that you hear all the time. So you'll hear Joni Mitchell or the Indigo Girls, or songs that are not your typical Holly Jolly Christmas that you hear over and over. Not to say that I don't like those too. I mean, 'cause
Right.
you only hear those once a year. Although I don't understand radio stations changing to all Christmas music in early November. That seems a little excessive, but I
Why
enjoy
do they do that? If I just can interrupt for a second, why do the stations do that? Because it's easy? Because it makes
ratings.
money?
It's good ratings.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, they get good ratings. Although now there's so many choices. You have Spotify and Pandora and Sirius XM, and there's so many Christmas channels out there that people have a lot more options than just listening to Christmas music on the radio. So I'm not quite sure how those decisions are made at this point.
Before you do a show,
Mhm.
do you put together a playlist? Or does it an algorithm kind of produce one that you kind of review?
Yes, it's more like that. The music gets scheduled via computer, which if you had, when I started out in radio, which was in 1970, if you had told me that not only would I be playing music from a computer and broadcasting from a location, not in the studio, I would have just thought you were crazy. But now it's there are music scheduling systems where you tell the rules, you give it rules, about how you want this music to schedule, which are the same types of rules that I would use in my own head when I was choosing my own songs. Is it a male? Is it a female? Is it fast? Is it slow? What's the genre? And then that generates a playlist. And then I have the option to modify it based on, what I think we should be playing and when, et cetera, that type of thing.
I'm so fascinated with the evolution of your industry, and so talk a little bit more, like, what are the biggest changes from when you started? And I mean, I remember when your twins were born because you were, or not right the day they were born, but when you just had them because you were on the radio talking about it. And I remember being fascinated to hear
Yeah.
somebody talk about having, kids. It was pretty
Yeah.
neat. So what's the big changes between when you started in the industry and the profession and now?
There are women now. When I started, there were no women in radio. I was the first woman on the air in Minneapolis and St. Paul there was a woman who did recipes, but I was the first one doing a regular DJ show. I was 16 then. That was
How'd
kind
you
of,
get the job?
I was very, very persistent. Uh, I it was a station that I listened to, and I went to the program director and said, you say you're a progressive station. I don't think you're very progressive because you don't have any women on the air, and you should hire me. And he said, well, I need to see how you sound. So he put me in a studio and told me to speak extemporaneously about any topic. And so I talked about Captain Beefheart for 5 minutes. It's an artist back then. And he said, okay, well, I'll let you know. And then I would call him every week and say, are you giving me a job yet? Are you giving me a job? And I think he finally just got so tired of me bothering him that he said, okay, I'll give you a weekend shift, but don't expect to make a career out of it, which I
Oh,
reminded him of when I was inducted into the Maine Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. So,
that's a great story.
yeah. Yeah.
So that was in 1970, you
Yeah,
said?
1970.
That's just, it's it's amazing to think how much music has been created in that space. It
Yes.
almost seems it seems overwhelming to me sometimes to get, like, what to listen to. My husband and I, sometimes we just struggle, like, we don't even know what to we just don't know how to. We have Spotify, we have all the things at our disposal, but it's hard to actually know what you wanna listen
Yeah.
to.
Well, the music
How
that
do you
now
how
is
do you
considered classic, I played when it was new. The Eagles and Billy Joel and Elton John, I played those when they came out as new artists that nobody had ever heard of. So it's
Oh, isn't
evolved.
that interesting?
Yeah.
Who's your biggest, like, or one of the biggest surprises, like, that you maybe spotted early on, that have lasted over the years? Or I don't know, is there any,
When Bruce Springsteen's first album came out, I remember sitting and listening to it with a group at the station, and someone said, yeah, he kind of sounds a little like Bob Dylan mixed with Van Morrison with horns. And we thought, yeah, this guy's pretty good. And well, I think that he had a modicum of success.
yeah,
So
I would say. He's got a Christmas song that
yes,
you
he
hear,
does. One of my favorite Christmas songs. I love that.
Now, did you, as a young person and as a young, professional in the industry, see a lot of shows?
Yes, I went to a lot of concerts. That
What are
was
some of the highlights?
Oh, there's just so many. Hard to say. I mean, I've been to so many shows over the years. I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of my heroes and meet a lot of artists, and it's just been really thrilling.
Tell me just, like, one or two of your hero artists who you've met in person.
Well, I'll tell you a great experience and a not great experience. So I did get to meet Bruce Springsteen, who is one of my heroes, and this was in 1980, and he was so nice and so warm. No one had cameras back then on their phones, that didn't exist. So I never got a picture taken with him, but I did have my backstage pass. And I told him I played him every time I was on the air. And so he signed my backstage pass and he wrote, "To Randy, every time, love, Bruce." So I have that framed in my studio.
Oh,
Yeah. Then another experience was I had the opportunity to meet Bob Dylan. And I was so excited to meet him for a number of reasons. I'm from Minnesota. He's from Minnesota. His daughter was married to the brother of my best friend. And so I had a lot to talk to him about. He stared at the floor the entire time, would not make eye contact, and just mumbled. It was like he did not
wow.
age at all. So that, sometimes it's nice to meet your heroes and other times it's better to not.
Who would you say is your top 5, like, I'm not going to hold you to this, but if you had to say of all the music that you've listened to, like your top 5 favorites?
You mean artists?
Yeah.
My favorite artists? Oh, well, I told you Bruce, and I love Joni
Mhm.
Mitchell. More contemporary, I love Randy Carlisle, Chris Stapleton, Lyle Lovett. I have a fairly eclectic range of music.
Now, did this music gene flow to your kids? Are they music
Yes.
lovers?
Yes, but my sons, the music they like is not. I like almost every genre of music, and I don't really like the music they like, which I guess would be called like
Rap?
post-punk. No, not rap, but that's more like hardcore, just pretty heavy, quite heavy music by
Well,
bands that I've never heard of.
when I listened briefly this morning to The River in
Mhm.
Boston, that seemed pretty heavy to me. I was like, "Wow, I guess
Really?
I don't know, it was probably just a, rock and roll song, but,
Yeah.
so do you have any big resolutions coming up for the new year?
No, I don't really make resolutions. I try to just live the resolutions every day. I
What
try to live my best life every day.
And you are gaga about sunsets. At lea anyone who follows you on Facebook has a wonderful, experience seeing these sunsets over a pond where you live. What is it about the sunset that is magic for you?
Well, I'll tell you, one of my dreams was to have a house on a lake, a camp on a lake. And we built this house on a lake. It took 5 years to build. It was a long process. And now we've been here for a year. And I just love to go, and we face west because I love the sunset. And I just love to go out every night and watch the sunset. And so many of them are spectacular that, I can't help but capture them and share them.
Did you and your husband build the house yourselves, or it took 5 years for someone else to build it for you?
No, we didn't build the house ourselves, but it took 5 years to get it built. So about 3 years hassling with the DEP, which is a whole nother story, and then 2 years to actually get the house built.
And where had you lived before that? In the city or in a suburban town?
We lived in Scarborough for
Oh,
many years, for about 28 years, and then when the pandemic hit and I lost my job, we realized we could live anywhere. And that's when we bought this land and decided to build this house. And in the meantime, my mother in law went into assisted living and she had a house in Southwest Harbor up on Mount Desert Island. So we sold our house in Scarborough, moved up to her house, and lived there for 3 years while this house was being built.
oh, great.
It was
And
great.
you probably can't talk too much about the lawsuit, I imagine, but, is that something that I'm sure you're glad is in the rearview mirror?
Yes, my attorney said, what I can say is that it has been resolved, and I'm glad to put it behind me.
Well, you had, in David Webbert,
Yeah,
one of the best. So
I did.
I'm glad it worked out, and I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah.
And so, like, what would you, if you were to, give some advice to people who are coming up in the profession, what are some of the lessons or tips that you know now that you wish you had known then when you started? Or do you have any advice for people coming up in the ranks?
I hate that question, and I'll tell you why, because it's really a hard business to get into because of people like me. I mean, people who are doing shows remotely on 2 stations. And, it used to be that you could go hang out in a studio and do an overnight show. That's how I started, did an overnight show. And then, you move to the night show, and then you move to a midday show, and you work your way up. And there just is no working your way up anymore. There are not a lot of opportunities. And there's a lot of debate about whether terrestrial radio will sustain, given that there are so many other platforms. I love it. And I think that there are things that we can do that Spotify will never do, which is basically be a companion. But I think if someone asked me how to break in, I would probably tell them to consider a different career.
Wow. Do you have, in any of your shows that you do now, do you engage the audience? Do you have people call in, or is it more just you kind of being the host?
Yeah.
And
No call-ins, but I do get, I do engage with people. I get emails, and I'll email them back, but not as far as taking calls.
you're described as a radio personality, a legend, really. In terms of that term personality, on-air personality, is your on-air personality like a reflection for the most part of the Randi Kirshbaum who your husband and kids know, or is it sort of a brand that you have developed over time that is separate and distinct from your real personality?
No, I think I try very hard to be authentic. Authenticity is really important to me. And so I would say that I am the same on the air as off the air. My daughter will say, "Oh, you have a radio voice," which I don't think I do. I think I sound the same on the radio as I do in person, but but no, I just try to bring whatever there is of me. That it's not all about me. It's not me. No one wants to hear about me constantly, but bring my perspective, my thoughts, and some stories to the listeners that they would appreciate.
How did you navigate the political season?
That was very, very difficult. I really, and it was different for Boston than for Vermont.
Oh, talk about that.
You have to think about, who's listening. Boston is a blue state and is pretty liberal, but we also are heard in New Hampshire, and it's just more, I guess, diverse politically. Whereas Vermont, it's home of Bernie. You can pretty much say whatever you want in Vermont, and it'll be fine. But no, I try to not. I don't give my opinions. I will present information, and say that Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris. I will report that as a news story, but then I don't say, "Yay, I think that's so great." I really try to not impose my specific. It's not a talk show. It's not a political show. So I try to not impose my views on my listeners.
When you're in your car, if you maybe you never go in your car anymore, I don't know. But if you are there DJs or radio personalities that you like to listen to now?
I primarily listen to public radio when I'm in the car. I just I hear enough music with the shows that I do. I listen to some of the other shows on the stations that I'm on, but I'd say that I'm a big NPR fan.
I love NPR, but I don't listen to it nearly as much because some of the voices I just don't like listening to. It's just the sound of them. I don't like my favorite, Michelle Martin. I used to listen to her on the weekends in the evening. And I just love Michelle Martin. And now she's in the morning and because my routine is different. So I've sort of lost my NPR addiction, which it's good, but in a way I miss it. I did think that they got a little too liberal, and I was sad in Maine when they separated the news from the music programming. So when you listen to your classic station, all you hear is news. It's just news, news. And I thought it was such a wonderful mix in the old days, like I don't know. Did you ever remember that guy in the morning, Robert J. Lertzema?
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
that was, you'd have your fill of news, and then there'd be just sort of this nice time to reflect over music. So I'm not as much as the public radio, but I'm looking for I'm looking for radio stations. I think I'm just gonna, now that we've made this connection, I'm gonna
Mhm,
plug in and listen. So if I want to listen to your shows, I can
mhm.
do it online. And
Sure.
tell me when you're on the Bull and
No, I'm on the river in
the
Boston.
river. That's right.
Yeah, it's 92.5 The River, and that website is theriverboston.com, and I'm on there 6 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, and then I'm on The Point in, well, it's in Burlington, but it covers a lot of Vermont because there's a network, and that I'm on from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday.
How did you get the Vermont job? Just like online or?
No, I know the format that I work in is called AAA. That's like I said, it's sort of like WCLZ. That stands for Adult Album Alternative, and that I love that format. I programmed WCLZ for many years. It's my favorite format because it's just so wide reaching and diverse musically. And
How many formats roughly are there? Like that's one of a couple or one of
oh,
several?
there's lots. I mean,
Okay.
there's pop, there's top 40, and there's country, and there's urban, and there's all these variations on all these formats. There's rock, there's classic rock. There's lots of formats, and so
You're
I
away.
knew people. Yeah, I knew people in the business. I knew people, and so after I was no longer with the Portland Radio Group, I just started putting out feelers to see if anybody would be interested in hiring me. And I actually got hired at a station in Annapolis, which was a good station, but subsequently got sold to a religious broadcaster. And then I got hired at the station in Seattle, which flipped to country after a year. And so, but I had been all along in Vermont, and the same same owners have the Vermont station and the Boston station.
Oh, okay, that works out.
Yeah.
That's pretty convenient.
Mhm.
Well, do you have any, I don't know, wishes or hopes for the coming year? What's on your mind and in terms of looking around the corner at what lies ahead for 2025?
Cynthia, I just hope that people can be kind. I found what's so disheartening to me following this election, whether somebody will cast their vote based on the economy or immigration or whatever they decided, is that it seems that the people have been given a license to be bullies and to be mean. And I hate seeing so much discord. And I would really wish that everybody could just be a little kinder to one another. And that is my wish for the coming year.
Well, that sounds like a good one. My kids ask me, what do I want for Christmas? And I always say peace on earth. Um,
Mhm.
and this year I also want, I guess, a little bit of revenge. Anybody who leaves a poop bag full of poop and plastic along the road, I hope they get their stocking full of a couple of those bags. I'm with you. I had to kind of just turn things off after the election, and
Yeah.
locally we had a very divisive political season. Not so much about the Trump Harris campaign, although that was the undercurrent,
Mhm.
but it was more just local issues.
Yeah.
And on some of
Well,
these
in the
local,
you're a former legislator, right?
yes,
Yeah.
I was in the Senate and the House, but it was
Mhm.
very collegial when I was in the. I mean, for the most part,
Mhm.
what was written about was often the skirmishes and the fighting, but a lot of the work was collegial. And in the profession that I'm in, I'm a trial lawyer, I mean, by profession, it still remains somewhat collegial, which is
Mhm.
surprising because lawyers are typically thought of as bulldogs and pit bulls. But I like being around lawyers because we sort of recognize that there's rules and guardrails, and that if you step over the line,
Mhm.
theoretically, there's going to be a consequence. um,
Mhm.
but in society generally, I'm with you. Like we got to get back to, regardless of what religious path you're on or um, where you stand on this issue or that issue. The golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated, would just go a long way to
Mhm.
making the world a better place.
Mhm.
Um, you make the world a better place. It's so awesome that you have had this amazing career and stamina. What do you attribute this force that you have in you to keep going and keep doing these shows that people love to listen to and hear you?
I love doing it. Someone once said to me when I worked in management for a long time as well as on the air, and someone said, "You don't want to be a jock when you're 50, do you?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds great to me." And now I'm getting to do what I love, which is be on the air, relate to people, engage with people. When somebody tells me that they feel like I'm their friend, that's the highest compliment I can get. And so I really enjoy it. It's my purpose.
Well, thank you for doing it. And thank you very much for coming on my show. I really appreciate it. I hope you'll come back. Maybe
Okay.
next time I'll have some music keyed up that's licensed so that I can play in the background.
That sounds fine.
Randi Kirshbaum, thanks, and have a happy holiday, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, anything else that you plan to celebrate with your family. And I wish you all the best for 2025.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thanks. Take care.